So I wanted to thank everybody for their comments on my video, whether or not a note taker could benefit me. I got some very nice input from all of you. One comment in particular stood out. I don't remember who posted this up, and I don't want to single you out, so I'm not going to mention, I don't want to mention your name for privacy, obviously. But somebody made a mention that I should get a Nexus 7 and then a Nexus 7 beats an iPad. Well, you're certainly entitled to your opinion, but I suppose I should take the time to address the market that that I'm looking at. For those of you who do not know, I do have some vision, but not too much. I need to use magnification. Now I know that my screen recording doesn't show it, but if you go back to my earlier videos, anything before January of 2012, you'll see videos where you have a really big arrow and everything just looks gigantic. Well, that's because I use screen magnification all the time, and I've started using speech more and more to help, rest my eyes from time to time. Now, a Nexus 7 can do a lot of things, and this same person also suggested that I use like a QWERTY keyboard, say like this. The only way to do that, though, is through a Bluetooth connection, at least on iOS. And the Android environment has certainly come a long way, but if there's one thing that must be understood, it's that for people that need software that talks to them, like me, iOS is the way to go in the mobile space. Because the chances of an application talking to you are very high. But you still have to worry about Bluetooth connections that could be a hit and miss, especially on an iOS device, because even if you could hook it up through USB, the iOS device would never recognize it. Apple seems to have this love affair for being wireless for some reason. So you have to essentially keep up with two devices, your keyboard and your iPad, make sure they're both charged. You have to make sure you keep up with both of them. You have to make sure, because you don't want to set one of them down and then, like walk off without one of them, because that would be a very costly mistake, especially if you were to come back, like with an iPad, for instance. Let's say you set it down somewhere and you're working, and all of a sudden somebody says, "Hey, we're going to be late for class," and you leave in such a hurry that you forget your iPad. Obviously, hopefully that'll never happen, but you have to take a look at you have to take a look at these scenarios. And then what about Braille? I made the case that speech is not enough. Again, the words T-H-E-R-E and T-H-E-I-R. A screen reader would pronounce both words the same way, and if you do not keep an ear out and you're not familiar with quickly navigating around your document, and even so, it's just faster to get material with your Braille device. Now, that's another thing. One of the things Aaron Linson had made a note on with his Apex, his Braille Note Apex Notetaker, is that it's not compatible with Android. And I'm not surprised. A lot of things in the assistive technology realm, Android usually takes a back seat to them. And the access technology is certainly there in Android, and a lot of companies are developing software for Android. But let me give you an example. The National Library Service for the Blind and Physically Handicapped is coming out with their own software player. It'll be out later this summer. It's going to come to iOS first. There's a reason for that. They're having problems with Android. And you have to understand, iOS it's encased in a nice little box, if you will. It may be limiting to those of us that like customization, but in terms of trying to access things completely audibly, customization can be a hit and miss. I was about to say very bad thing, but in some instances it can work out, some instances it can't. And there's just so many unknowns regarding, and again, like, let's take this example. We have our Braille Edge 40 refreshable Braille display and an iPhone. Well, the iPhone's a lot easier to leave behind. If you want to take it out of your pocket so that it's not rubbing up against your leg and you leave it sitting next to you, and you have your Braille display here in your lap and you're typing away, and then you get up to leave, if you're thinking about the assignment you have to turn in, obviously I'm hoping this doesn't happen, and I'm sure for a lot of people they're very careful about their equipment, but I'm saying worst case scenario here. What happens if you leave your device behind? People will be a lot more likely to steal an iPhone than they would be to steal this, because they wouldn't have any use for it. And that's why, I feel that Aaron had made several good points for a note-taker. First of all, the software is built with the blind in mind. Second, your Braille is instantaneous. You don't need to worry about connections that may end up suddenly going awry, or cables that end up getting tangled everywhere. I know from myself, if I have a long cable and I get up and I'm not completely aware of where that cable's going, I could trip over the cable. I could, on more than one occasion, I've let my iPhone end up on the floor because of the cable being so long. Just a whole bunch of unknowns. Whereas, yes, this device is outrageously expensive, but you have to understand that not everybody wants one of these. And what I mean by not everybody wants one of these is I'm talking about the general populace. A lot of people would probably see this and gawk at it. They wouldn't know what it is. And a lot of people say, well, the Nexus 7 can do everything that this can. It can, but what sort of experience are you going to have? Chris Pirillo had made a comment once, I remember, about it's not just the apps, but it's also about the user experience. If you've got all the apps in the world and you've got a clunky user experience, nobody's going to want to use your device. Now, what would be a clunky user experience for somebody who is blind? Let's go back. Let's take a look here. Let's say, for instance, that the connection keeps fading in and out. That the software you're using, that your friend says, "Oh, this is great software, try it out." Chances are, if your friend is completely sighted and they don't know exactly what it's, a lot of people don't know what it's like not to have their vision. They would not have taken into account whether or not the software talks, because they themselves wouldn't need to know, how to use it. It wouldn't be on their mind. In fact, a lot of people, I remember a friend of mine several years ago, I told them, they had an iPhone, I told them to go into their accessibility, turn on VoiceOver. The second it started talking, they asked me, how the heck do I turn this off? Okay? Whereas somebody who is blind, if a piece of software is not talking properly, even a single row of unlabeled buttons could end up causing confusion. Now, certainly you get used to them, but again, what kind of user experience is that? Whereas, again, with something like the Braille Sense, everything's all neatly packaged in, and as Steve Jobs would say, it just works. Now, again, it's extremely expensive because the Braille technology is not easy to make. It is extremely difficult, number one. Number two, not everybody buys one of these, so your ROI, return on investment, for developing in the first place is going to be a lot lower if you were to sell it at, say, a mainstream price. You need to make the money. You need to get that money back so you can continue to improve your products and to help to support your customers as a business. But the assistive technology market is so small that the ROI must be recuperated a lot sooner because there's so few of these selling compared to iPads. Now, somebody did, I remember, let's go back to the QWERTY keyboard scenario. What if you wanted a QWERTY keyboard? Well, that's where this comes in. This is the Braille Sense U2 QWERTY. The exact same hardware as the Braille Sense U2. What is the hardware, by the way? It's actually not bad for what you get. You get, well, in this unit you get an LCD display, and you're thinking, well, why would somebody who's blind need an LCD display? The idea is that somebody who is sighted can go in and take a look at what you're doing, and they don't need to know Braille, they don't need to know any of the commands, so it's really, really great for professional office environment, for schools, and even for people who are deaf-blind. There's an application you can download for your iPhone that will communicate with this device, and the user who is deaf and blind can communicate on this device, and you can see what they're saying here on the display or on your iPhone, and you can type right back to them. It's like instant messaging. It's really cool, and it's actually cheaper. This unit runs for $5,595. Now, why do I say, oh, that's cheaper? Well, the only other solution that I'm familiar with that's currently still relevant is one by Humanware. Humanware sells not just the Braille Notetaker, which in their case is the Braille Note. They also sell an unlocked iPhone to go with the package, and my guess is because they're providing it in a scenario where you don't want to take out a contract, but you want the device. But you have to be willing to pay for it. That one is over $7,000. Again, we're talking about a very, very small market where the ROI is not going to be recuperated as fast if it were sold at mainstream prices. So let's go back to the internals. So we talked about the LCD display here on the top. So we've got 802.11n wireless. We've got Bluetooth. We've got onboard GPS. We've got 32 gigabytes of onboard storage. We have pretty much everything you'd expect in a standard computer. You have a word processor, a web browser. Excuse me. You have instant messaging. You've got Twitter access. All of that is available on a Nexus 7, yes, but how well is it going to work? The software with a default web browser for Google Play, for instance, is an absolute joke when it comes to making it talk. Now, there is a software suite called Mobile Accessibility that you can get for your Android phone, but again, different carriers put different user interfaces over the top, and that wreaks havoc with a screen reader because it's like you're standing there and all of a sudden you get a curtain thrown over your head. You know? So you don't know what to make of it. So again, if you want this technology, but you're not entirely, like, for example, I know how to read Braille, and I certainly know how to write Braille, but I have proven myself to be faster with a standard computer keyboard. That's where this comes in. Oh, the ports. You got 2 USB ports on the Braille version. On the QWERTY version of the Braille Sense, you've got 3 host USB ports. You've got Ethernet. You've got a VGA out, which allows you to hook up to an external monitor. You've got a removable battery, and that's beautiful because in this market, no Notetaker, except for this one, has a removable battery. And also, we talked about the extremely high price tag, $5,000. Let's say you spend $1,000 on a laptop, and all of a sudden it has to go in, and they're going to be like, "Oh, you're going to be without your laptop for a few weeks." I don't know what the warranty service is on that sort of repair, but if that repair were to happen to this device, because of the extreme price tag, a lot of people use these as their main computers. You wouldn't be able to use them as openly as you would with a Windows PC, but a lot of times openness, when it comes to needing to get things done, which would you rather have? It's like a business. They'd care more about having something that works rather than having something that's latest and greatest. The software on this is essentially guaranteed to work, and a lot of people use these in school and in their jobs. As a result, not being with your Notetaker could mean the difference between passing and failing in an exam, or in some cases even being fired. So this device, if you were to turn it in for service, the manufacturer actually provides a loaner. It's like when you go in to a dealership to get your car serviced, and they say, "Oh, it's going to be a few weeks." Well, guess what? You know how sometimes you can either pay for a loaner car or they can give you one? It's the same concept here. So I just think that there are a lot of great things to like about a Notetaker. Now, will there come a day when there's as much turnkey functionality in a mobile device as there is in one of these Notetakers? Certainly. Certainly could be. But will it come immediately? No. At least not to my way of thinking. And let me explain why. iOS is fabulous for accessibility, off-the-shelf accessibility, especially for a smartphone. You plug it into iTunes, you hit a checkbox, and it starts talking out of the box, okay? But you have, you have unexpected glitches with software. And what do I mean by that? Well, not everything talks. You take your chances. And unfortunately with iOS, if it's an application you like to buy and you all of a sudden find out it doesn't talk, well, congratulations, you just wasted your money because of their refund policy. At least that's what I understand. In order to get a refund, you have to really present a good argument case to them. Whereas, again, with this device, you're guaranteed an out-of-the-box talking solution that can do everything that I would say you would need to do on the job or in school and even for leisure activities, because this has, we went over some of the software. We have the social networking access, which you can turn off. You can actually go in and turn off that option in the menu system. You've also got things like a book reader, and from what I understand, an excellent audio player. This thing, I believe, has surround sound built into it. So, but again, it just comes down to taking a chance on mainstream technology versus getting something that you know will work. And if you need to get one of these for school or work, I'm going with the solution that works. It may cost a heck of a lot extra, but it's definitely worth it if you're able to get something that talks to you out of the box and is guaranteed to fit your needs as somebody who is blind or has low vision. And I have to say thank you to Aaron Linson for opening me up to this fact. I've completely forgotten. It's been so long since I touched a Notetaker from my old-fashioned Braille and Speak that I'd completely forgotten some of the hurdles that somebody might face when going with an off-the-shelf solution. But I just wanted to clear some of that up in case anybody had misunderstood. So anyway, thank you everybody again for your comments on the last video. Keep them coming. And I certainly meant no disrespect for anyone, so please don't take it as such in case I may have said something. For those of you who have commented, in case I may have said anything that bothered you. But I just wanted to get that out there. and hopefully get people to understand what it's like to be one of us, to have to face the possibility of yes or no in terms of getting a job or getting the grade. Now, getting a job, if you can show somebody, if you've got this device in front of you and you can show somebody that you can do the work, that really helps, because a lot of people, we go back to the example again. My friend who I showed voiceover to, they wanted me to tell them how to turn it off. A lot of people, they don't know what it's like to be blind, and unfortunately, there's still this stereotype that if I'm blind, then I can't do it. Now, not everybody's like that, but unfortunately, it's still something that we have to contend with. We have to contend with that notion that some people are going to think that way. So we need, as people who are blind or have low vision, to be able to show them that we can be productive. And going into an interview with your Bluetooth Braille display, your iPhone, and your keyboard, you put that all together, and all of a sudden, if something goes wrong, if a connection fails, that's not going to look good on. Now, obviously, it was unexpected, technology's fault, but at the same time, you get what I'm saying. It's just better to have something that works, that is going to work, rather than something you have to take your chance on. And I'd say if it's worth the extra, if it's going to cost you an extra couple $1,000s, if it's going to mean the difference for you between work or school, I'd say go for it. Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.